I've never been the kind of person to believe in urban legends. My life has always revolved around logic, routine, and rationality. But everything changed the night I boarded that cursed bus. That night still lives inside me like a parasite, feeding off every moment of silence, every shadow in the corner of my eye. It all started after a long shift. I worked overtime, left the office past midnight, and missed my usual bus. I stood alone at the deserted bus stop. The city drowned in an unnatural stillness. No wind, no cars, not even the distant bark of a dog, just silence. That's when it appeared. A bus, old and faded, painted a pale, almost grayish green. The windows were dark, and the headlights dimmed, the fog in front of it like two dying candles. I didn't recognize the route number. In fact, there was no number. Just a word scratched into the dust of the front display. Sete Além, curious and desperate to get home, I climbed aboard. The driver didn't speak. He was pale, with eyes so sunken they looked like black holes. He simply nodded as I swiped my cardwitch. Strangely didn't T-register, and I walked down the narrow aisle. The bus was filled with people, yet no one made a sound. Every single passenger stared straight ahead, their faces devoid of emotion. Some wore outdated clothes, others seemed wrong. A woman cradled a bundle of cloth I thought was a baby, until I saw the bundle shift and blink. A man in a dusty suit had his mouth stitched shut. The more I looked, the more I realized none of them were normal. Still, I sat down. That was my mistake. The ride began. The city outside disappeared, replaced by something else. The streets twisted unnaturally, like the world outside was folding in on itself. Buildings were jagged, melting into the sky. We passed through tunnels lit by a red glow that felt like blood seeping through walls. I lost all sense of time. Minutes stretched like hours. I tried to check my phone, but the screen was cracked though. It had been fine earlier, and every photo in my gallery was gone, replaced by grainy images of unfamiliar people staring back at me. I tried talking to the man beside me. He didn't respond. I touched his shoulder, turned slowly, and where his eyes should have been were two gaping, empty sockets. No blood, just hollow darkness. And yet he smiled.
That's why.
That's when I realized I wasn't on any normal bus. I was heading somewhere else.
Nice.
Somewhere that existed between reality and nightmare. I'd heard the name before, whispers on internet forums, rumors of a dimension hidden behind the veil of our world, a place you accidentally end up in, a place you can't always return from. People spoke of it like a joke, like a myth, but I was living it. The bus finally stopped. The doors opened with a hiss like a dying animal. Outside was a city bathed in twilight, though no sun hung in the sky. The buildings were wrong too tall, windows glowing with faint green light. People or things walked the streets, but their movements were broken, like puppets on frayed strings. Some looked human, others didn't. The driver looked at me through the mirror. For the first time he spoke. "You can get off now, or stay forever." Now, I don't know what came over me, but I ran. I shoved past the stitched mouth man, past the woman with the blinking bundle, and stumbled down the steps. The ground outside was cold, like metal. The air smelled like sulfur and rot. And then everything changed. I opened my eyes on the ground at my usual bus stop. Morning had arrived. People bustled past me as if nothing had happened. But something had. My phone was still broken. And in my pocket I found a ticket stub, bold, yellowed, and faded with one word on it. Sete Além. I never saw that bus again. But sometimes late at night when the city goes quiet and the air thickens, I hear the hiss of brakes. I look away. I never look back, because I know, if I get on again, I won't come back till the next scare. There's a place just outside of town where the fog never lifts. Locals call it the Lowlands. A stretch of forested roads swallowed by silence and strange weather. People say it's cursed, but sometimes just before the first light of dawn, a bridge appears where there wasn't one before. I never believed it, not until I saw it with my own eyes. It began when I took a wrong turn on a trip back from a friend's cabin deep in the hills. My GPS lost signal completely, and every road I took looped me back to the same fork, like I was stuck in some kind of glitch. Frustrated and sleep-deprived, I gave up and parked at the edge of the trees, waiting for sunrise to find my way. That's when I saw it. Through the thick fog, barely visible, was a narrow bridge I swear hadn't been there before. It's made of stone and iron, old and decaying. It stretched across a river I hadn't noticed earlier. The water below didn't look like normal water. It was black, still almost reflective like glass. The air around it was unnaturally cold, and there was this sound, and like distant whispers carried by the wind. I should have waited, but I stepped onto the bridge. At first, nothing happened. The stones groaned under my feet as if no one had walked on them in centuries. The fog thickened, swallowing the road behind me. Halfway across, I noticed something strange. The trees on the other side weren't the same. They were taller, twisted, with bark like burnt flesh. The sky above them had a purplish tint, and there were no stars, just darkness. I kept walking. When I reached the other side, it felt like I had crossed into another world. The air was dense, the silence oppressive. I turned back. The bridge was gone. Gone. Only the black river remained. Panic surged through me. I tried retracing my steps, but everything had changed. The path was overgrown with weeds that hadn't been there before. I could hear soft crying coming from somewhere in the forest, but every time I turned to look, it stopped. I walked for hours, or what felt like hours. Time didn't work right there. My watch stopped ticking. The sun never rose. Eventually, I found a small cabin. The windows were boarded shut from the inside. I knocked, desperate. No answer. But the door creaked open slowly. Inside, it was abandoned. Or so I thought. The furniture was ancient, rotting. Dust coated everything, and I saw the drawings on the walls. Hundreds of them, scratched with nails or sharp stones. Drawings of the bridge, over and over, always the same, always appearing in fog. And below each one, dates, names. Most were unreadable, but some were familiar. I recognized one, a boy from my high school who'd gone missing 10 years ago. He was the last person anyone had known to vanish out there. Suddenly I heard footsteps upstairs. I didn't wait to find out who or what was there. I ran. The forest closed in fast. The trees bent unnaturally, their branches clawing at my clothes like hands. The whispering returned, louder now, desperate, angry. I couldn't understand the words, but the feeling was clear. You don't belong here. I tripped, hit the ground. When I opened my eyes, the bridge was back, but it was crumbling. Still, I didn't hesitate. Sprinted across as chunks of stone fell into the black water. I felt something behind me, breathing, almost touching the back of my neck. I didn't look. I jumped the final step. In the moment my feet hit the ground, the sun cracked through the trees. The fog lifted, birds chirped, the road was back. So was my car, but when I looked behind me, the bridge was gone. No one believes me. They say it was a dream, a hallucination. But I checked that cabin later. I went back with 2 friends in daylight. There was no cabin, no river, no signs of a bridge. Still, I remember what I saw. And sometimes, when I drive those roads just before sunrise, the fog starts to roll in again. And if I listen closely enough, I can still hear the whispers. Waiting, calling, inviting me back, till the next scare. I used to believe that every place, no matter how mysterious or hidden, could be found on a map. Every hospital had records, coordinates, a traceable history. But I was wrong. There are places that don't want to be found. Places that exist on the edge of reality. It's places like the hospital I stumbled into one night. The hospital that doesn't exist. It happened when I was driving back from visiting a friend in another city. It was late, and I was exhausted. I remember the rain. It's thick, endless rain, smearing the windshield until I could barely see. My GPS started glitching, the voice warping into static, rerouting me into unfamiliar roads that weren't even paved. I should have turned back, but instead I pressed on. Then my headlights hit something through the fog. A large building in the distance, a hospital, or what looked like one. It was tall, covered in vines, with broken windows and a flickering Red Cross sign barely holding on to the facade. But something was off. It stood in the middle of nowhere, surrounded by dense forest. No other buildings, no road signs, no lights. And yet, the front doors were open. I don't know why I got out of the car. Maybe it was curiosity. Maybe something pulled me. The moment I stepped inside, I felt the air change. Thicker, colder, heavy like it hadn't been breathed in years. The lobby was massive and eerily clean, despite the building's decayed exterior. The fluorescent lights buzzed faintly above me, but they cast no warmth. There were no receptionists, no nurses. Just long, silent hallways stretching into darkness. That's when I heard the gurney. Wheels scraping softly against the linoleum floor. I turned and saw it, a stretcher rolling on its own, slowly passing across the hall ahead. No one pushed it, it just glided. Should have left, I should have run. But something in that place numbed my fear. My steps echoed as I followed deeper into the hospital, through corridors that seemed to twist and shift behind me. Doors that had been closed were suddenly open. Some rooms weren't there when I turned back. Others had no walls, just black voids beyond the doorway. And then came the whispers. Not from people. Not from any one place. They came from the walls. Murmuring voices, dozens of them speaking in fragmented sentences, in languages I couldn't recognize. Some of them whispered my name, not just once, over and over. I passed a waiting room filled with wheelchairs. All turned to face the door, as if expecting someone. The lights flickered, and I saw figures sitting in them, motionless patients with pale faces and wide, lifeless eyes. When the light steadied again, the room was empty, but the smell remained. That unmistakable mix of disinfectant, blood, and rot. I found what looked like a nurse's station. Dust-covered monitors blinked with static, but one screen showed something. Me, standing right there watching the feed, except in the footage I wasn't alone. Behind me, something was moving. When I turned, no one was there. But the screen still showed the shape, tall, thin, cloaked in darkness. Watching, I ran. The halls changed again. Now, every door I opened led to a different version of the same room. A surgical theater soaked in blood. An ICU with no power, but machines that beeped. A nursery filled with rusted cribs, and no children. And in each room, I saw it. That thing, it didn't walk. It slid. Glided across the floor as if the laws of physics didn't apply. Its face was covered with a surgical mask, but I could see something shifting underneath, like a mouth constantly moving beneath the fabric. Its eyes were sewn shut with thick black thread, but somehow it saw me. Every time I blinked, it was closer. I reached the stairwell, but it spiraled down endlessly. I ran down dozens of flights, only to emerge in the same hallway I had just left. Time didn't work here. Space didn't work here. I was trapped. And then I saw the nameplate on a door. Patient. My full name. I never gave them my name. Inside, a hospital bed waited. Fresh linens. Chart hanging at the foot of it with details about my life. Everything. My blood type. My childhood address. My fears. My dreams. Even the name of my first pet. The lights went out. All of them. And in the dark, I heard the heart monitor beeping. In perfect sync with my heartbeat, then flatline, I screamed. When I opened my eyes, I was lying on a dirt road. Morning light filtered through the trees. My car was parked behind me, engine cold. I had no idea how long I'd been gone. I told people about the hospital, but no one could find it. No GPS data, no building permits, no coordinates. It simply doesn't exist. But I know it does. And sometimes when I drive alone at night and the rain begins to fall, I swear I see that red cross glowing faintly between the trees. And if I stop again, I don't think I'll come back till the next scare. Some stories stick with you not because they're told often, but because they're never told at all. You hear them in whispers, in the nervous glances of those who refuse to speak, in the silence that follows any mention of a certain name, a certain place, ... or a certain child. That's how I first heard about her. It started when I was 10. A new girl joined our class mid-semester. No one knew where she came from. The teacher introduced her as Isadora. She was pale, unnaturally pale, with jet black hair so long it reached the middle of her back. Her eyes were the strangest part, gray, almost silver, with pupils so small they barely looked human. No one wanted to sit next to her. And I know what you're thinking. Children are cruel. But this wasn't that. This was instinct. Even the bullies kept their distance. Something about her felt wrong. She never smiled, never spoke unless forced. And when she did speak, Her voice was flat and hollow, like it echoed from somewhere far away. The teachers insisted we include her, but even they seemed uneasy around her. One day, we were paired for a school project. I remember dreading it, but curiosity won over fear. We met at her house, except it wasn't really a house. It was more like a decaying mansion tucked away at the edge of town, surrounded by dead trees and rusted iron gates. I had passed that place 100 times and never noticed it before. Inside, the air was thick. The walls were covered in old, faded wallpaper that peeled in long strips. The furniture looked antique and untouched by time, as if the house itself had been frozen in place. There were no pictures, no decorations, nothing personal, and the mirrors. Every mirror in that house was covered with dark cloth. I asked about her parents. She said nothing. Just led me to her room, which was empty, except for a small bed, a desk, a box full of old dolls each with its eyes scratched out. We didn't work on the project. She just stared at me for hours, asking strange questions. Have you ever seen a person disappear without making a sound? Do you know what color the sky is in, Sete? Would you still recognize your family if their faces weren't the same? I laughed nervously, thinking she was trying to scare me, but her expression never changed. That's when I noticed something. She had no shadow. At first I thought it was a trick of the light, but as I moved around the room, her shadow never appeared. Hers didn't. I left early that day and tried not to think about it. But after that, strange things began to happen. Kids started vanishing, one by one. Always the ones who had gotten too close to her. No one ever found them. No evidence, no footprints, just gone. And each time someone disappeared, Isadora seemed different, stronger, almost taller, her skin less pale, her eyes less empty. Until finally, she turned to me again. She asked if I wanted to play a game. I said no. The next day, she didn't show up to school, or the next, or the next. The teachers didn't seem to remember her. Her name was erased from class lists, from attendance books. It was like she had never existed, but I remembered. Years passed. I tried to convince myself it was all in my head, until one night, I woke up to the sound of knocking on my bedroom window. I live on the 3rd floor. When I pulled back the curtain, she was there, not aged, not different, exactly the same, staring, smiling for the first time. She didn't say anything, just pressed her hand against the glass. Her eyes were solid black, no whites, no pupils, just endless void. Then she mouthed the words, "You still remember me?" The next morning, the window had handprints on the outside. No ladder, no ledge, no explanation. I tried to move on with life, change cities, cut off old connections. Told myself it was sleep paralysis, trauma, imagination. But she follows me. I see her in reflection standing behind me in mirrors, then gone when I turn. I hear her humming at night, a melody no child should know. I wake up with dolls at the foot of my bed, dolls I never owned. Last week I found a note slipped under my door. Only said, "Sete is waiting." No one knows what Sete truly is. Some say it's another dimension, a place that exists beside ours but follows its own rules. A place of silence, cold, and shadows. And that child Isadora was never one of us. She was a messenger. Or worse, ... a collector. And now she's collecting me. If you ever see a child that doesn't cast a shadow, run. If you hear soft knocking on your 3rd-story window, ... don't look. If you ever get invited to visit Sete, don't accept, because once you enter, you don't come back the same. If you come back at all, until the next scare.